The first thing that drew me to jazz was my grandpa. He played saxophone, and I remember when I was 4 years old sitting at his feet listening to him play jazz standards, and I knew I wanted to play the saxophone. It was the most inspiring thing, so I knew from that moment that was something I wanted to do, and I didn't know anything about jazz.
I love the expression that comes with it, that comes with jazz. The ability to interact with people that you're very close with on the bandstand on a really different level than just speaking with them. Or you're playing with them and you're bouncing ideas off of each other in the moment, and it's a really unique experience.
What I love most about jazz is that when you improvise, you're basically writing a piece within the piece. So it gives you some independence in what you're playing.
I love jazz because it's huge. It feels like there's something like really big that I'm just a little part of, but the fact that I am that part of that it feels really good.
When I practice, I try not to think about it as practicing.
I try to practice every day.
Probably like 45 minutes to an hour.
30 minutes, 20 minutes.
It just depends. It's not really enough.
I try to think about it as I'm getting my fingers and my hands more able to communicate what I'm thinking.
You're on the line a lot more. You're your own person. Like, you're not just a guy standing there with a saxophone. You're a guy like speaking through a saxophone.
You can't show up unprepared. There's a lot of times where you have to do stuff even when you don't want to, and even when it's not fun, and practice the technique and all the boring stuff. You have to do that with the mindset that it's going to pay off and it's going to be exciting.
When the band is working together amazingly, I don't know if you've ever surfed before, but it feels like you've surfed the biggest wave in the world.
Playing in the high school jazz band is a pivotal moment for a lot of kids. There are some kids that would not be successful now if they didn't have band to keep them in school. Some of them might be doing other things that are not so positive.
Hot Java Cool Jazz is the ultimate experience for a high school jazz musician. To get to play on stage at the Paramount Theater with a professional light team, professional sound team, on the stage where they've seen other amazing jazz artists is just outstanding.
It's about expressing your humanity. It's about expressing your feelings about yourself in this world, your feelings about who you are in relation to your peers, saying your thing. And it's not any one way of doing it. You might be quiet, you might be shouting, and you might go from being totally subtle to totally aggressive with what you're doing. But it should always be something that expresses you.
They develop a sense of fellowship, and they learn how to move and groove.